a lot of times people are really understanding about that.
Yeah, it is. I guess one of the things that we just need to make sure we understand is the way that the utility is operated to date is to be very nimble. And so, as Kathy was saying, she typically takes bills in right up until when she gives them to me for approval. Now, if we wanted to switch to having the commission do that approval, we're just going to have to start creating some cutoffs, which we haven't done, just to say that anything that comes in by such and such a date, that's our end date, and then everything gets processed. And if it comes in after that, it's just in the next batch. It's just a change in how we've approached things before. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it is significantly different approach than what we've had in the past.
I've got some hearing for Connecticut Energy this summer, and it was 60 days. So, I think bigger corporations, it's not unheard of. I'm not suggesting that 60 days, but
right. I guess
I'm really my first month here was, kind of uncomfortable with the fact that we already paid these bills, yet they weren't approved. But it just seems, and I think we talked about this before. So I mean, I guess I would, still stand with it. We should approve them and then pay.
Okay.
I think the first step in that process is taking a look at the impact doing that is going to have on our process. So if we have to say, okay, here's the date, if we have to say, as Councilor Carroll suggested, ask some of our members to say, look, we need 30 days on this because we have a cranky council here or commission, and it should meet with the commission is meeting like this, and they want to make sure it's approved. In actual form,
yeah, you just need to hold it close, Craig.
Am I doing that?
There.
So that we can pay these bills on a timely fashion, but at the same time, do something we know we won't pay. Do I think it's going to make a dramatic difference there? Probably not. But I think it's an appropriate approach to our bill pay. So I think it's worth pursuing internally. You guys can say, okay, here's what the impact is going to be, and then we can have a motion to do whatever needs to be done.
Okay.
Mr. Barbian?
So what some cities, you want me to use the microphone, please? Okay.
This gets recorded.
Okay, let me put this on. Speaking just as probably one of those contaminated issues. So what some cities do is they initiate a policy, and the policy spells out, for example, some of the similar type bills like payroll. Have the authorization to be issued without coming before the commission or the council. Certain standard bills, like perhaps the electric bill, the gas bill, and some of those more standardized are sometimes covered in a detailed policy that might provide some limited approvals for authorizations that not have to come to the commission or council. So that's how cities have approached it. Just thought I'd offer that.
I think there are certainly some of those tax things that can be done, PIRA things that can be done as need be, because those are going to be other miscellaneous expenses that come up. We might say, okay, let's take a look at everything, get everybody to nod, and then have possibly like the power payment for the cost of our power and the city of Princeton, possibly something that's approved ongoing basis. This is kind of to you guys to say, okay, here's the impact. Here's some of the things we should just pay as it comes. Here's the things that are more incidental we should take a look at.
Okay, I'm sorry, just to, as a clarification question. If we need to go out and buy an insulator or a gasket or something like that, and we order that, are we saying that the commission would have to approve that before we order material? Or is it simply a matter of just approving the expense, even though we've already received it, we've already acquired the service, you guys are just authorizing the actual check writing. Is that what we're talking about? Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
I guess, if we decide that something shouldn't have been paid, how do you ask for, ask for a check back, it's a little, it'll be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just ask the question, in my 6 months, you guys have been here longer than I have. Have we ever seen, in my 6 months, I haven't seen what I'm about to explain, where I went, I don't want to pay that, I don't feel comfortable, and it's already paid. That's your statement right there. Has there ever been a situation like that arise?
Not that I'm aware of.
I know there's questions that we ask, what is this for?
Yeah.
So I understand what everybody is saying. Kathy, do you see any major roadblock that as you go through this in your mind to go, how are we going to do that one?
Well, there are some payments that are automatic.
So do you feel it's doable? I'm sure you guys might have to talk about it.
Yeah, we just have to think through, all the different bills and just come up with what the logistics of that would look like.
I think it's a great idea. It's just, as you said, the logistics. How do we do it? How do we get through it? So that's just a couple of questions I have.
Thank you. That being said, I would entertain a motion. We had a motion already. And a second. Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Motion carried.
Thank you.
We are down. We're down to the report section. Keith, you want to take it from there with the simple?
Yeah, I mean, as you guys have noticed, every month we're kind of tweaking things as we move forward to try to keep things efficient but still providing the information necessary to the commission. So the report section, the thought was on this was the commission has requested several just ongoing updates. I thought we could kind of throw that into a report section. If I have anything in particular, I'll mention it. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those. Otherwise, it's more there for your information, much like the city council does with their reports. So in the section under reports is the SIMPA minutes and key metrics, as well as monthly financial reports, which includes the income statement, the balance sheet, the trial balance, and the cash reserve. The only thing that I would point out in those is if you go to the cash reserve, and I'm scanning down on the screen so folks can see it there as well. You just keep going here. And again, just so everybody is aware, these packets are posted on our website, so the public can take their time and view it in total. Oh, shoot, where is it? Kathy, it got in there, right? Oh, okay. I will get that out to everybody. The only thing I wanted to point out on the cash reserves is the electric has increased to 117, and we're now over 2 million on the electric cash reserve budget. I'm trying to think if I've got it. And water is still in the same range as it was last month, but I just wanted to point out that the electric has been increasing. So apologize for that miss. We'll make sure we get that out as well.
session.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion is carried. Moving on to updates. The electric department updates, Kate?
Yes, in the generation plant, we conducted test runs last week. We did notice 2 small water leaks on unit 3. We're hopeful that replacing a couple of O-rings will address that issue. We currently have 7 offline. After the last round, we did find some contaminants in the oil chambers. We're working with the Ziegler to troubleshoot. Dean, the Ziegler mechanic, was actually on site today. We were talking through different options to address that. As a precaution, we did go ahead and do a visual inspection of the catalyst, and they were found to be clean. So that's a good sign. But we really want to figure out what is going on there. What was found in the oil was water and a high level of sodium. What that usually indicates is glycol, antifreeze that burned off, leaving behind a water and sodium in the oil chamber itself. So if there's a refrigerant leak in Unit 7, that's of concern, and that's why we took a look at the catalyst. So we're going to continue to work on that and get 7 back up as soon as possible. I mean, it can run. The question is, if we run it and there's a coolant leak and that gets up into the exhaust, we can burn through another set of catalysts. So I don't want to do that. That's about $35,000 to replace those. So I really want to figure out where this leak is at before we have to run that unit again. On the distribution side, we've begun our annual inventory activity. We've completed the outside counts, which includes everything in the south lot, transformers, poles, things like that. Focusing on tree trimming for the next couple of weeks. We're continuing with some retrofitting of some old internal light fixtures to LEDs. And then we did experience a busted hose on the bucket truck, so we're working with Alltech to get that replaced. On the water department side, I want to announce that Scott Schmidt has officially received his Class C water supply system operator certification. So I want to congratulate him on that. We've also begun work on our risk and resiliency report. There's a new regulatory requirement from the US EPA for all water utilities to do, again, a risk and resiliency analysis, which is to be included in our emergency response plan. That is due June 1st, I believe. So we're working on that to make sure that we get that in on time. We've also been meeting with Minnesota Rural Water Association. They're giving us some assistance on that. They're giving us some templates and different, helping us explain to us what we need to report and the best way to move forward on that. So we're very thankful for their guidance and assistance. We also conducted visual inspections of all 3 water towers. No issues have been identified. We're working on developing a more robust vehicle maintenance log for the field staff. And then we do have an air leak at water treatment plant number 2. We're thinking it's just a simple gasket replacement that'll fix that issue. So we're going to go ahead and take care of that. That's my department updates.
There was a conversation at one point about a SCADA upgrade for the water towers. Is that still in the works?
We are doing not quite sure which thing you're referring. We're doing a SCADA system upgrade in the power plant for next year. We did do an update with the communication between the water treatment plant and the water towers. That got implemented. We ran into a few bugs, but we worked through all of that. So everything is working as expected. Okay. Being a utility, we have a lot of SCADA systems. So. Yes, please.
Anyhow, would you like to start out?
A couple weeks ago, I sent out an email inviting the PUC board to a joint meeting with City Council. We're requesting that we get together and meet sometime in January. And the dates that I threw out were the 12th, the 19th, or the 26th as some options. The only ones I heard back from were Rick Schwartz and Greg. And Greg let me know that any of those meetings pretty much work for him. And then Rick Schwartz had a good suggestion. He would like to wait since board appointments will be made on January 14th by the council. He would like to wait till January 19th. So that if he's still on the board, then he would have, you know, it would make more sense for input from him. And if he's not, then whoever the new person is would be able to have some input. So I'm wondering if Tuesday, January 19th works. Thinking 4:30. We have some people on council that have a hard time with daytime meetings, so 4:30. And then we're hoping to keep it to about 2 hours long. We'd like for both of us to have an agenda of topics that we want to discuss with each other. And if Tuesday the 19th works at 4:30 for you guys, then I will let council know. And we'll get that finalized, and then I can send out another email letting you guys know that.
It works for me, Jenny.
Okay? Yeah.
I'm good on that.
Okay, Greg? You're still open, Greg?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Keith?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, sounds good. I will let council know and let you guys know for sure when it's finalized. Thank you.
Okay, a couple of things, thank you. Well, good intro to applications for the commission are open. As everybody is aware, so.
Mine is submitted.
Right?
Mine has been submitted.
Yours is submitted. Okay, great. Speaking of SCADA, the city just recently finished SCADA on all the lift stations, which is working well and certainly time-saving efficiency. Good to have good communications. And right into communications, the AT&T tower that's at City Hall should be live soon. So they're just final items I think are being taken care of right now. We have had a development review meeting that's going forward with to the planning commission. That's for Rum River Plat, which is off of First Street. That's the apartment, the new apartments. We have site plans for Lot 1, Lot 1, and Lot 1, Lot 2. Those are the 49 unit apartment buildings. Those are going to planning commission and they go to council in the middle of January. So I haven't heard anything, I think here. Oh, go ahead, Dan. Yes. There's two that are to the, would be, sorry, to the south, and these are both to the south of First.
That's the Pat Briggs project.
That's correct.
Didn't you say Rum River Drive?
It's called Rum River Plat,
Oh,
is what he named it.
so this will be on the south side of First Street.
Correct.
Rum River Drive. Is that-
Yeah, Rum River Plat is on the south side of First Street, and there's Lot 1 and Lot 2. No, it's in the city limits. It's before 21st Avenue. It's before 160. Is it before 169? Oh, it's just after 169. Yeah, it's, all right. After 169, before 21st.
The other side. I was thinking of the
And you might be referring to Broadway Development, who looked by the dental clinic. I spoke to him about 10 days ago. At that time, he was recovering from COVID, and he was doing fairly well. Slowed him down a little bit, is what he said. Haven't heard since then, and couldn't tell you what direction he's taking. If he's taking a direction, maybe somebody here knows, but I haven't heard. The city has not heard, to the best of my knowledge.
Really, Jeremy. The information that I have is that they are not planning on doing that.
The,
That Broadway is not planning on doing that at this time.
the one by,
The dentist, which is on the north side.
I know that he had originally looked at other lands.
Right.
Is there an interest in those other lands still?
I don't think they want to be in the Princeton area, is what I'm hearing. I know Eric and I know Dave. Those are the two that make up Broadway.
I think it was, what were the names did you say?
Eric and Dave. Dave's the banker and Eric is more of the development.
Right.
Now, if that changes, it changes, but at this present time, I do not believe that's going to be moving forward on the north side.
I think he was looking. I think he was looking elsewhere. But the other thing that we had a second development review because this one went really, oh yeah, and also we reviewed Taco John's, which is going by the GM deal. So that was the site plan review. Both of those items seem to be moving along well. A couple of minor items that were needed to be addressed and being looked at. We're also working on a development agreement with Reed's company to move that forward. So that'll be coming to the council soon. Then we started to talk about Sherburne Lakes and Sherburne Village, which is the Sherburne Village is the off of 2nd Street. And Sherburne Lakes is north. County Road. Thank you. That's all I have. Okay.
Keith, back to you for general manager's update.
Yes. Well, let you know that Ryan Grant, had submitted his resignation and his last day was Friday, December 11th. We have begun the search for a new electric superintendent. The opening has been posted both with MMUA and APPA, and information is on our website. In the interim, Jeremy Linden and I are working together to keep the electric department moving forward until a replacement can be found. We have completed our annual FMCSA, which is Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administrator query, which was conducted in late November. It's an annual requirement on all staff that use a CDL for work, so that's been completed. In regards to collective bargaining, I continue to meet with the state's Bureau of Mediation Services, but no date has been set yet for a vote. There was a question that came up last month regarding electric heat customers and the deposit for those. Just wanted to share a little bit of information on that as it pertains to renters and owners. The current breakout of our electric heat customers is we have 98. 16 or 16% of those are owners and 77 or 79% of those are renters. So the vast majority of people on electric heat are rental units, and that's how that breaks out. We did install holiday decorations throughout town, and we assisted with the Light Up Princeton by providing some staff and a bucket truck. We were able to put some lights up in the trees, and I had the family up, and we drove through it last week, and I thought it looked great. Just want to mention for the Christmas decorations, those are city-owned decorations that we keep here and store here. Every fall when we bring those out, we always go through and maintain those. And we do a bunch of miscellaneous repairs. So we spend about $411 just replacing some lights and things like that. It's not something that we've ever charged the city. It's just something that we've always just taken care of to keep those going. Yeah, Jenny. For the ones that go on the streetlights throughout town, I was always told those were, because we paid the city for a few years on that. That's why I was told we had allocated $2,500 a year for 5 years to the city because they purchased those streetlight decorations to put up. Oh. Okay, because we never paid that to the you know, to the chamber, we always paid it to the city on that. So that was always my understanding is, so, okay. Then I stay corrected.
Oh, well,
Pardon? Well,
did the money go to the city or to the chamber?
Well, he is saying that the check was issued to the city. And I don't know if we issued the chamber a check for the total, or if they were just bought, but they're the chamber's lights that we have.
Well, we'll give you some time to dig into that, but we'd
Okay.
like, feedback by the next meeting.
okay, okay. Let's see, moving on, we did get a phone call from our peers up in Mora. They had delayed they experienced a delay in the arrival of a transformer that they needed for a project that was being constructed. So they were in desperate need of some equipment, and so we sold them our transformer. They were very thankful for the assistance and helping to keep them moving. So working with our colleagues in the municipal environment there. Bob already talked about the city development meeting from Monday as well as this morning. The Taco John's, just so folks here know, that's currently just water for us. We don't serve electric to that unit. And then for the, and I keep getting confused on the names. I have West Rivertown as the name for the apartment complex, but they changed it to. Oh, okay. So we serve both electric and water for that one. And then with the Sherburne Village, Sherburne Lakes discussion, that's currently not in our service territory. Wanted to give a quick update on Covet Impacts as well. For the last month, we sent out 242, so it's an increase of about 24% in what we're experiencing there. The total dollar amount of money in arrears is currently at $73,680. Now there's a couple of there's a couple of larger customers in there which we typically don't see. So if you take I think that's a little bit of a overstatement of where things might be at. But by way of comparison, last year at the same time we were at $40,845. So you're looking at anywhere from if you take out those two accounts, you're still looking at a 60% increase in our total arrears for this month compared to last year at this time. If you don't take those out, we're at 80% higher. So it still is, it's still something that we're monitoring and tracking as we continue to navigate the pandemic. That's what I have for the General Manager's report. Any questions on any of those items?
On the arrears, what have you been hearing for feedback from our customers? What their plan is?
Unfortunately, we do have some customers that are very difficult to reach. We've really worked hard to set up payment plans, for those that are communicating with us. But we do have some that it's been difficult. And I know we've also heard from some of the landlords too, because they're in the same predicament, which is there's a non-eviction order out there as well. So they're seeing issues with rents not coming in on a timely basis. So it's hitting everybody. I guess I'm not quite sure what you might be asking, but we're working with those that we can, and some of them have just been we haven't been able to reach as easily.
Yes, just curious if from COVID, There's another reason, or, you know,
Yeah,
general feedback is on why is it 60%? I mean, the obvious would be from COVID, but I, you know, I don't want to assume that.
yeah, I can't say for certain. I guess Kathy, do you have any? Have you heard any insights on that? For the most part, we usually aren't told. You know, I can't say that we know for each of those customers. They don't always volunteer it, and I don't know. I guess I don't know legally if we can ask. You know, I always get a little nervous about that.
I guess I did get some not always, someone that was working with some clients that put an application in November, and they said they were still working on the September application. So, you
Okay.
know, 'cause I know there is some help, I believe Lakes and Pines is who we refer them to.
Yeah, so we work very closely with Lakes and Pines as well. So the minute that money gets issued, we are able to track it.
So I don't know if that's maybe applied for some systems.
Yeah.
It's just not processed yet.
Yeah. Well, and I know the state had their COVID money as well that they're processing too. So.
Okay, I have a question. Are these people that are in arrears still at the current resident that they encountered this arrears? Like,
Yeah. I mean, if somebody moves out, we have to get them trued up. You know, we have to get them in. So if they move from one location to another, they need to pay off that last bill. They can't just transfer that to a new.
right.
Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
If they're still living there and we want to write it off our books, they're just going to have another bill next month.
Mhm.
So why would we write that off if they're still currently in their same home or apartment?
Yes.
So is that more of just a notice to let us know where we are at with those
Oh.
accounts?
Yes, we do the notice because we haven't been able to reach them by phone or emails if we happen to have it. So we'll do a mailed notice saying that, you know, you're really behind.
Right. But
Please,
if you are explaining to us this is what we're okay,
yeah.
you're not asking us to take action on it. Right?
No. This is just informative at this point, just so that the commission is aware of the financial impacts of what's going on.
You know, those two larger, first, are those two larger accounts that are almost like business related, or do you have some dynamic? There's a couple of different, there is a 0% loan fund that is still out there. There certainly were some grants out there as well, but can you give us any dynamics on the two larger accounts?
I'd rather not get into it because I don't know that I think part of it might just be a timing issue from when we did the report, that they just hadn't paid their bill yet. So it's not something that has been going on month after month after month. This is just simply what is past due. So I would rather not speculate on that.
Keith, I noticed Mr. Olin has marked in. Do you want to slide him into the agenda, or do you want to make him sit there and behave himself?
That is fine with me if that's what the commission desires.
Mr. Olin, are you prepared to do your dog show? Let me preface this a little bit if I might. I think the members of the city council already are familiar with you. I should caution you that we are not prepared to do anything. But listen with both ears. This is a very complicated financial, political, technical, logistical issue that is coming up, and it's very, very premature in many ways. But if it's something that you think might happen in the future, we'd love to hear about it. At least we would have our heads up, and it's something that we and the city would have to work together very closely on if it were to come about. But there should be no preconception that this is an endorsement of any kind. But Glad to have you here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I believe it's Mr. Olin's thoughts to just bring this out in the open to everybody. I think that's really his point today. So I don't think it's premature, because I think all information is very helpful as we all sit on our different commissions and boards, et cetera. So more information in my eyes is much better than less.
I only meant that it's premature in terms of us making any kind of decision.
Right.
I'm glad to have the information. It's interesting to see where folks want to go, but we've got a long way to go before any kind of action would take place. So that being said, carry on, sir.
Mr. Chair, you mind if I take one last stuff while I speak?
And when you're speaking, you can take that off, but maybe you can come and get this thing.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, I guess if we're passing that mic around, it might be safer to leave them.
Right.
Yeah, if you hold the mic up, it should pick up everything.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commission, for making time for what I know is a really busy schedule today. What we want to do is really, you hit directly on it. This is an introduction. I wanted to come to the Commission today and just present what the conceptual plan is. Every project has to take a first step, and really this is it. We have presented to the City Council, and this is the next logistic step is to look at, let you guys in on a plan. Did everybody get a copy of what I said?
Yes, they did.
Perfect. So you have 11 by 17s. I think the only difference between what was sent to you and what's on here is that I think the layer for the city limits was turned off on your plan, which I apologize for, but on this plan it's turned on, so you can see where the city limits currently lie. And it makes more sense there because we're doing a couple of things. Well, first of all, Todd Olin, I'm with Land Forum. I'm here representing AMI Corp and KW Properties, Communities, excuse me. KW owns the existing mobile home park, which is the village mobile home park down here on the south side of 317th, County Road 2. They also own the unoccupied property that's to the north that is kind of shaded in with lots and sketch utilities and whatnot. And that's aimed to be designed at a 55+ community. So they're going to be like detached villas, single unit detached villa type setup. And so when we started looking at this project, obviously there's a lot in the way of utilities that would have to get installed in order just to serve the developments. So there's really two things going on here. Number one, the village is currently outside the city. So we are looking at doing a annexation request to the city to get the boundary revised to bring that into the city. Of course, when that happens, then the line would be modified to include this yellow area. It's hard to see from there, I'm sure, but there's a yellow outline here that this property would be incorporated into the city. What we're trying to do is tie these two together. They're owned by the same development, and we're trying to use, if you will, this development to the north in order, along with this one, in order to fund what it's going to take to get water down through the property and then loop back up to the existing system. So ultimately, we're looking at a loop system as well as trying to expand it further to the south down to County Road 2 for future extensions to the city, whenever they may come. Before I say anything more, excuse me, I want to make sure that this is conceptual. That's all we're presenting is conceptual. We're trying to lay out a framework, if you will, that going forward, both the city, PUC, and the developer are all comfortable moving forward. This is going to take a lot of studies and a lot of engineering, a lot of reviews to get this done. And the way that we tried to format this is that we are setting this up, so to speak, and asking for considerations on certain issues so that the developer pays for the installation of all the utilities, public and private. In exchange for that and the easements, we're asking that fees for WAC be waived. We're asking that the trunk fees get waived And again, I'm not asking for any decisions today. This is extremely preliminary. All we're trying to work towards right now, this first step, is to work to a level of comfort, if you will, because all those things I mentioned, the surveys and studies and engineering and reviews and approvals, working with your engineer to get through the design, all lead up to really a pinnacle of a development agreement. And that's going to be months and months down the road. What we're trying to set up now is just a framework that would be eventually incorporated in that development agreement, assuming we can all come to an amicable way to move forward. So all told, with the water, we're looking at about 9,640 feet of watering that would have to be installed as part of the loop. I put a quick summary together. If you don't mind, I can hand it out. I will give you one. I just need 5 copies, so I need one. Thank you.
Excuse me, is this the same thing that was provided to the council the other night then?
No, the council was a summary letter of the whole thing. I aimed it at simply the water and electric. I'll get you one. So all told, with the park, there's currently 90, just to give you an outline of magnitude, there's about 96 home pads currently in the park. They want to expand by about 40 units, which is in this area here, which of course they have an on-site private water system and an on-site wastewater treatment system and collection and distribution. So the idea here is to put it all together such that when the utilities come through, that this would be added to the municipal system. But the on-site collection, distribution system would remain private. Everybody knows we wouldn't ask for this PUC or any other entity to come in and take over a system such as this. What we're suggesting, though, that the water be extended down to the county road, and then private connections be connected to the water system with metering manifolds, and maybe in 2 locations. And again, those details need to be ironed out in the future. But and with that, there's a host of fire protection issues that have to come into play as well. So, and like I said, we're just looking at a framework. So with that annexation, 96 home pads, about 40 more is what we would like to see in the expansion. All told, with everything built out, we're looking at about 353 residents. And part of there's 2 main issues that really started this process. He's owned this for quite a number of years, but the one thing that is a big push in this is that currently in the county zoning does not allow this use at all across the board. So it's currently zoned rural residential, and it's a legal non-conforming use. So any modifications to this, not that they're impossible, but they're very difficult through Baldwin Township and then through the county, because they both layer on this for a zoning issue. The other issue is he is maintaining a private on-site water, and not that it's 30, but on-site wastewater as well. But eventually we want all these to come into the municipal system, be able to abandon, cap, and properly cap the water system, and then, of course, at the same time, abandon the wastewater system, and then make a connection to eventually wastewater system. Different board, I understand, but just trying to give you the overview. With the lakes project, and when I say village and lakes, this is the village on the south side of Chew. The proposed development that is to the north side of Chew is the lakes, Sugar Lakes. So there's 2 primary things going on there. So with the lakes, they're looking at about 120 to 123 units. I use a different calculation for those types of units because they're 55 plus. The number of persons per home is down. We use 1.5 per house instead of a 2.5 average. So if you're looking at 123 units, it adds approximately about 185 residents. As far as a Most of the homes that have scenic backyards, they'd be set up really well. If you're interested in pictures, I can provide those via email through Manager Butcher. And with the standard development, when we go through a development, we try to estimate what the actual cost of installation is. We add on what the estimated cost of fees are per unit of base on flow. And we came up with this format based on the outlying driver here is to set up a deal where the developer can afford to put utilities in and not ask any department of the city to get their checkbook out. So those are really the two things. We don't want or don't ask for somebody to pay these up front other than the developer. On the back side though, on the second page or third page, I put two columns there, and one of them split into the village and one's the lakes. Excuse me, and the second column there is actually labeled village as well, but it's actually lakes. But it's just an outline of what we're asking for consideration on is to waive the WAC fees. The future park WAC would apply. So what I'm saying there is this would come in, if it's annexed and approved, would come into the city. The connection will eventually be made on the existing residents there, but any expansions, these 40 units would be paying for the WAC fees. We're asking to waive the trunk fees. We are wide open on discussion of electric. Currently, they are on Connexus Energy. My understanding of that is, and I'm not the authority on this, believe me when I say that, but my understanding is that that's a separate process, and it really comes down to between the city PUC utility and Connexus to really annex one from the other. I think, yeah. So the developer has very little to do with that, other than saying on the record they're not opposed to it. It's obvious that this development on the north side of 2 would all be new services and would be in the city system. It's just a question of when this gets annexed.
No, that's all Connexus territory as well.
Oh, it is.
That is, right.
But again, that can be then transferred via that other process.
Right.
Okay. But again, I'll just say again that they're not opposed to it. They're really not. They don't feel strongly one way or the other if we send a bill to Connexus or we send a bill to, or send a payment to the city. So we're asking that along the utility corridor that deferred assessments be put in place when the utilities are installed, so that future connections can pay back some of the costs to put that utility in. And then they'd like the flexibility of when the annexation happens. They'd like the time of about 15 years to make the connections to the existing residents here into the municipality. And the reason being is that they've got maintenance costs, improvement costs, and keeping up their MPCA permits and whatnot. And they amortize those over some time. They just want to get some of the bang for the buck and then make the connections. And that would just be, like I said before, private connections to public utility. It's out in the right way. It's the way we have it set up. I know you're tight on time. I want to be sensitive to that. But if you have any questions on this early stuff, I'm here for questions.
No, I'm fascinated. But that's about all I can say at this point. It's very, very interesting. And about 50 years ago, I lived in that mobile park.
Oh, you did?
That was 50 years ago. Like, things have changed. Very interesting. And obviously, it's very impactful. So it's going to impact the city in dramatic ways and us as well. Should it go forward? I would say to you that if we don't get the electricity for down there, we're not. I as one person on the commission would not be particularly interested in moving water down there. But that's something. It's a complicated issue, as I said earlier. Right. You know, there's logistical, technical, financial, political, all kinds of issues that impinge on this project, and I think it's fascinating. It's very interesting to see it go forward.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, could you say that again? Did you say you are not interested in getting water to this new development?
I don't have any objection to bringing water down there, but I'm not interested in bringing water down there if we don't get the electrical bill with it. I would like, and this is a personal opinion, that has nothing to do with my colleagues. I would like to see us bring water down there and not also gain the access to the electric service. So that's just something to think about. And obviously it would need a lot of discussion up here and over there and with the city as well. I don't know where you guys are. And it's really not a place to discuss any of that. It's just a very interesting project, and I'm sure you'll keep us appraised as you march ever forward in 2021. So, I'm sure we'll be talking to the city about it. You know, they have their technical guys, and we have our guys, and keep us on top of that. We'll just wait to hear more.
And just as a side note, we did set up, Manager Butcher was nice up to set up a meeting with his staff, and we're going to do that on Friday. Again, we're not looking for any decisions. We're just sharing information at this point. We understand how PUC works and how it has to work going forward, but ultimately, not today, maybe not even at the next meeting, but eventually we're looking at this board weighing in on if they, in framework and that concept, support these issues, or we can work something out similar to this. So we're not only suggesting this is how we know we can do it, but if there are some things where there's some give and take, we'd love to hear the ideas. We will continue to share information as it becomes available, and I appreciate it again for the time.
Just if I may comment, and Pete, tell me if this is true or not, or mostly. When we run water, we typically also run electric. Would that be the higher percentage than versus just running water on project?
Well, no, it all comes down to service territories. So it depends, if the city annexes an area, then, and it's served by Connexus or East Central, we haven't always done both and go through the service territory acquisition.
In a typical,
if the development is within the city, if it's within the water and electric service territories in both of them, yes. We have a situation here where this is outside city limits, so we have neither. And if the annexation happens, that opens it up for water, but unless we also are able to acquire the electric service territory, it's a different process. So, an example is, I'm just trying to, whenever the city expands, we deal with the same issue. Oh, I think it is advantageous to do both, yes. Yeah, whenever there's development, we would love to serve it. Yeah.
Just a quick question. So I understand what the bottom half, the old part that wants to be annexed, is in Connexus electric territory. What about the top half?
That's Connexus.
The top part is Connexus?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. The if I may, service territory line, I have is 4. So Connexus has all of this, everything in the middle. So but it is a sport that, so we serve down to the wastewater plant, everything's south. So none of this is currently in our way.
Okay, so if you guys did annex that into your service territory, it would be a super easy connection from Fourth there for you?
No, we currently don't have anything down here, as far as I know. The issue is, we're not, as far as I understand, the city's not looking at annexing all of this stuff. It's just these different PIDs.
It's just the bottom one.
Right. So we've got, but here's the problem is I always get a little nervous about islanding because Connexus, we can go after stuff that's within the city limits. Anything else, Connexus can say, no, we're not going to sell it to you. So if you have a situation where
depending upon where all these access points are, the access points coming in, if they're coming in from here, that still connects us. And how you handle that, I think is a question if you have multiple owners on a line. I just don't know at this point. What's easiest for us as a utility is if the city says, this keeps building out. I would, in my way of looking at things, I would much rather just say, okay, then you do the next ring, then you do the next ring, then you do the next ring. Jumping ahead down here when you have the stuff in here that's involved in township can get difficult. And I don't know the answer at this point. We have our service territory is to here, but that doesn't mean we have lines here. That just means if there's ever any development, we have the right to serve that. That's all that means. Yeah.
I'll go back to my earlier comment. Technical, logistical, political, financial, what we've got.
So two points that two commissioners made as well as discussion here. From what I've seen in other cities, oftentimes where those distribution lines are or where those service lines are going to currently sometimes influences whether or not, say, a selling company such as Connexus would want to sell, or a buying company such as Princeton Utilities would wish to buy it and plus extend services to that area. It's a cost item. And so your statements as to serving that area only if it's electric and water, I guess I would say you might want to consider that and review it, because in order to do that, you have to buy territory. And you want to look at your cost items first.
I understand that clearly.
Thank you.
Yeah, multi-layers.
Exactly.
It's almost like like the layers in your, on the computer, it's easier to see the layers, and it's like that for us as well. So, like I said before, we appreciate the time you're taking to show us. A project that's going to take a lot of thinking and work on everybody's part, if it were ever to come to fruition. So, again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank everybody for your time.
Thank you.
Let's switch to the speaker.
In that case, I think we'll start to go ongoing business.
Yes, sir. On the AMI, we're still currently on hold. The governor's most recent order pertaining to COVID expires on Friday. As far as I know, he's expected to make an announcement today, as last I heard, as to whether that extension happens or what it looks like, or kind of waiting to see what he says as we determine our next steps for AMI. Because of that suspension, our internal AMI work group didn't meet. So, but we're continuing to move forward on the billing side. So we're focusing our efforts on better integration of UConn with Power Manager. So the three of us, which would be Greg Bergman, Debbie Hodgson, and myself, we've been constantly reviewing outputs to ensure data integrity. We've been updating forms and defining new procedures to provide consistency from month to month, and to streamline the process, that's thereby saving some administrative time. So for example, internally we'd go through some monthly consumption reports. Those have been updated, which is reducing staff time for that activity significantly and also helping minimize just human error. So we're focusing on those internal actions for AMI. We've also received several disconnect meters. We're working with Eaton, the supplier, to make sure that we fully understand their operation. The hope is that we could start installing those next year to assist with future disconnections. So in the past, with the old style, if we had to do a disconnect, we would actually have to send out a field person to go out and pull the meter. That obviously can sometimes create some interesting conversations when you try to do that. The new AMI disconnect meters can be disconnected from the office. So it eliminates one of those potential situations at the time of disconnection. And then the way I understand it is when the customer then calls us and we can come up with a payment arrangement and get things resolved, we can then toggle it from the office and have the customer reset it at the meter themselves. So then it takes away, again, kind of the utility personnel having to interact out in the field by themselves, make sure that the customer is there when the reconnection occurs, because they're the one that pushes the button. So there's a couple of interesting characteristics of doing it that way. So we're continuing to explore that to see how that would work, and hopefully start implementing it next year. For the electric vehicles, ZEF will be commissioning the DC fast charger sometime quick here, and then once that's up and running, and I've got everything initialized for the credit card reading, we should be good to go once it gets commissioned. So I was actually going to position it with the commission. I think it'd be fun to do a bit of a ribbon cutting with that, do an official launch in January sometime with that new DC fast charger. So if that's a bit, so stay tuned on that. As soon as I know that everything's working, once we get it working, we'll have it there. But I thought just having a nice little announcement and say that's live. So look for that in January sometime. So that's the update on the EVs. The next one is the budget, sir. Do you want me to keep going? Okay. So in your packets, these are the items that we've been discussing. We discussed in past meetings. It's the proposed budget for 2021. And I do pull out the large projects just so folks are aware of some of our more major activities as to what we're doing. So everything's in there. The only difference from what you had seen in the past was we started looking at some quotes for a building addition, and it came back much higher than we anticipated. So I actually took it out for next year until we better understand financially what we can do and what we can't do. And then I did add in some new pneumatic actuators for water treatment plant number 1. So those are in there per a bid that we got from the contractor. So those are the plans. I just want to let you know I did make those changes to the large project list. Other than that, the budget itself is what you saw last time. So there is no rate increase proposed for either water or electric for next year. As things get tighter and tighter, we will have to reevaluate that in 2022. But as for 2021, I think holding rates constant is a prudent move. Any questions on the budget?
If I look at the water,
Yeah.
and compare it to 2020 estimate and 2021, revenues is down 54,517. And if we go to the total operation expenses, that's up 163 plus.
Yeah, as we talked about this a little bit last time, sometimes that year-end calculation in Power Manager, I think it's kind of screwy. There are some things in there where I don't quite understand what they do. It's a good tool for me to kind of help figure out where we're going. I think a much better perspective would be to look at the 2020 total budget rather than the estimated year end. Simply because year end's not my algorithm. It's a Power Manager output, and I just.
It's just something that popped up.
Yeah, no, it's very valid. Typically what that is though, the difference that I see, it's a timing issue, and it has to be when some of the other expenses come in, and whether it's doing the year-end estimate calculation based off 8 months or 9 months, depending upon when bills are coming in. So that's why it can get kind of screwy on the margin sometimes. The total budget, I think, is a better comparator.
The other question I had on the water is the bond principal.
Yeah.
Help me understand why that would go up $6.
Kathy, do you know these? I mean, it has to do with the timing of the payments, is from the way it looks to me as we're looking through it. There's different schedules in terms of.
In the water, we have 4 bonds that we're paying on. And the bond payment, principal payment isn't the same every year.
This is good stuff.
The principal payment on the bonds is not the same each year. There's a schedule that we receive. So like 1 year it might be 20,000, and the next year it might be 30,000. And then the next year it might be back down to 20. It's a schedule that's set up, at the bond closing.
Yeah, if you want, Rick, I can show you the amortization schedule that was established when the bond was issued. And it surprised me too. It does vary more. I was thinking more what you were thinking.
Yeah, well, it just seems like what would be the reason from a financial position to have it go up and fluctuate. If you look at it as a typical loan, your principal goes down.
Mm-hmm.
So that jumped off the page too.
Yeah.
So it's maybe not the question for you, but the bonding company to explain why would they have a sporadic principal payment like that? I don't understand why that would be beneficial to, unless they're somehow calculating the rate of the bond. And so, okay, that just jumped off too.
Mm-hmm.
And then you may have answered the same question on electric. Revenue is up 116, 194, and then the operation is up 165. But if I'm going to look at the 2020 budget, then we're right in line.
Yeah.
All right. Those are the questions, Mr. Chairman, that I have.
And the other thing on the year end, just again, it all comes down to the algorithms. Sometimes when you look at year end calculations, they assume some linear relationship. Being in a utility, we're very seasonal, and that creates lumps. And so that's why sometimes the projections just look odd. So I think it's helpful, a helpful guide, but I wouldn't bet any money on it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman? Sure. So, I know there's been some discussion and, we have a meeting coming up between the city and the PUC. And I'm just, the payment of little taxes, how is the commission approach that in the budget? I didn't see it in the budget. How would that be something that could be approached?
So what was the last part of that?
How would that be approached? I mean, surprised there's not a line item in there for.
I think it could be approached very cautiously. He would approach very cautiously. We'll talk about it. Anything else? At this point, then, I would entertain a motion to approve proposed 2021 budget. I'll make a motion to approve the 2021 budget.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded. If there's any further discussion, this would be a good time. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
3-0, motion is passed. Mr. Butcher, would you want to address?
Yeah, the next item is the proposed fee schedule for 2021. So that's memorandum 20-08. That's in your packets. Again, this is stuff that we have discussed at the last meeting, the updates in there. The only thing different from last month is if you go to the bottom, oh, this is my old one. Okay, I'm going to make a change to the fee schedule that's in your packets. The last line item, which says the cogen small power production application. This year, it's currently $100. I wanted to increase that to $350 based on the engineering studies that we've been seeing. However, I found out that by state statute, we're capped at $100 for that fee. So I would like to change that to remain at the $100 for 2021, like it was in 2020. So I do have that change in the fee schedule. Other than that, everything else is what we had discussed last time.
I talked about a reduction in the electric deposit. And I would still like to see that happen. And what I talked about is reducing the residential non-electric heat from 250 down to 200. And the residential non-electric heat from 350 to 300. The residential electric heat from 400 to 350. And I would actually like to add one line, the electric heat apartment at 250. So it would read 200, 250, 300, 350. I would bring that up again. I think that's just going to be push us towards a little bit of more user friendly. It's not going to cost us anything. Go ahead.
What was the last one? Electric apartment?
Well, it's what I'm doing, Dan, is on the very first line, it's non-electric heat department. But I have electric heat apartment and it's not on this list.
You were saying 200 on that. I was trying to.
250 on the electric heat apartment. So if you have an apartment with non-electric heat, the deposit would be 200. And then electric heat apartment 250. And the next three just are reduced by $50 for commercial I'm not touching or suggesting, or the senior citizen not touching. I would like to see that proposal. I think anyone that has apartments understands that.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, non-electric heat apartment would go to 200.
Right.
The non-electric heat would go to 300.
From 350 to 300.
Okay. The residential electric heat would be split into apartment and non-apartment, basically. And what would those numbers be?
Well, the 450 would be 350. And I'm actually adding, because you already have a non-electric heat apartment, but you're not addressing the electric heat apartment.
Well, I think what happened is the overwhelming majority of the electric heats are apartments. And so they just did an apartment rate for that. They didn't, because the non-residential electric heat, I'm sorry, because the residential electric heat non-apartment is such a low number, they didn't create a separate deposit for that. So they just wrapped it into one, because we're only talking about 100 customers at this point. So it's one of those things when you're dealing with rates and fees, you want to have a big enough population to come up with an average. And I think they just incorporated those together. The issue, so if we split those up, you're going to have a different deposit rate for less than, well, it's 19 accounts. And that's if none of them come in with, a statement that they've been current on their last utility bill, because not everybody pays a deposit either. So we're talking about a really small group of people. Yeah. And those that don't, I mean, it does impact us in other areas because as you'll see later on, we do have charge-offs, and that's because the deposits didn't cover what. Yeah, we take that into account, and what you see on the charge off is whatever's left over. Yeah. I think to Rick's point, the deposits are always an interesting topic. And to me, it comes down to coming up with a methodology as to what's appropriate for everyone. You know, and it might be better to look at the, you know, take a step back and look at this overall and say, what do we want to do? So for example, I know there are other utilities that these are minimums. And when you have somebody that has shown whether they're well, let me put it this way. If somebody moves into the area and they show us that credit, I don't want to say credit report because that's not what it is, but the utility account report, we will waive the deposit. If that customer then gets into a payment problem, we can then reinstitute the deposit at that point. And what we have the option to do, and actually what a lot of other utilities do, is this: it's not the deposit at this point. What they set for a deposit is 2 times whatever your maximum monthly bill is. And especially when you get into the electric heats, you could be talking a lot of money at that point if we followed that kind of methodology. So there's a lot of different impacts in how we look at this. And you know, it's up to the commission as to the direction you want to go. I would, you know, I think it behooves all of us to have something that's easily explainable and simple and equitable for everybody. And so that would take a little bit of time to kind of work through, if that's the direction the commission wants to go.
Yeah, and for the buildings I own, they have to go through a very thorough background, and you're going to be a good tenant and you're going to be a good customer. Otherwise, our bar is quite high, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but as a utility, we don't know that.
No, I know. That information, you know, our background to them, I don't know if that's going to be completely legal or not to share that information. But it's just.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So is it to waive this deposit to residential electric heat, you would waive that deposit if they showed previous payments to another?
That's what we've done, correct, Kathy? Yes, that's how. Yep.
Or letter of credit. What about, it has nothing to do with credit score? I mean, letter of credit has implications, and that's generally not, it's a letter of, I think, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, utilities call it a letter of credit. And that's what's written on the letter. And it shows the number of, for a 12-month period, and it'll show like the number of past due, not dollar amounts, just the number of past due, the number of disconnections. It just has a number in there. If you've had more than 2 in the 12-month period, then you would have to pay a deposit. You only look at it 12 months period, not one.
I think this, I mean, I may complicate this more, but it might simplify it. If we had a policy of a 650 with a credit score, no deposit. I have to do the fee structure the same. Because I think that was a complaint that I've heard. Because I have some, when you bet the tenants, the good tenants are usually 650 or above credit score, and they want to keep a good credit. Now, if they're below that, they're a risk. So then definitely, we can maybe raise the the deposit there. But I think what we're trying to do is make it affordable, and especially with apartments coming in, possibly into the city. I know the trend is, my daughter just moved into a brand new apartment in St. Cloud. It's electric heat, so if it built it, and the drawings that I've seen look exactly the same. So I'm not sure what what they plan on doing for heat, but if it's electric, you know, they're gonna have, you know, those apartments aren't gonna be cheap, plus you have this other deposit to put down. And if they are betting them with a good credit score, you know, we are.
Well, you know, it's one of those things where the property owner could also sign off to say that they'll cover it.
Yeah.
You know.
I do that on.
Yeah.
on one of my properties.
Yeah, but here we're talking about the utility taking that risk.
Right.
Right.
And I've never had a problem. It's been,
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't remember how many years I've been doing that. It's been over 10. Never had a problem, but I stick with that 650 credit score. So I don't see why us as a utility, if we could just, you know, follow that same policy. And I, you know,
So, if I'm understanding what you and you keep, what we're really talking about is methodology for determining when this deposit is required. Not really so much about the number necessarily, despite what you're suggesting here. The real crux of this is who has to pay and who doesn't. And if you have a 650 score plus, then you're suggesting that we waive these fees, but we don't use that. That's not our current methodology. We use these letters from other
Correct.
utilities or something. So it really means the suggestion here is we change the methodology. Does that satisfy your needs as well or not? I'm not a landlord, so I'm in a different place.
Well, and that's all the more reason why we should really focus on a methodology for this. So we're not focusing on any specific one line item.
Yeah, with how we do it, we feel very comfortable with people. We actually charge the first one, the last one, and the damage deposit. So it becomes a lot of money to come up with, and then they walk into the PUC and you got to write another $400 check. So it just, that's what I hear. And I said, well, this is the way it is. So it just lightens it a little bit, or if it doesn't, it's just up to discussion. I'll be really fine either way.
Commissioners, if I could just add, perhaps my experiences, when I came to town, you hope my credit's pretty good at this. When I came to town, I had a rent, and my landlord just looked for 2 months, first month and last month, or first month and a security deposit. And then when I came to the utilities to put the utilities in my name, I went along with it and made the deposit because I didn't want to go through the hassle of getting a bank to give me a letter of credit or going to my utility and asking them, explaining to them what I needed for this utility. Then, so I just gave them the money, the deposit. I don't even know what it was anymore, 300 or something like that. I think we covered it earlier, but I still don't even think I got that paid back yet, and I've already moved since then. And I've got utilities again. I think I should get it back. I mean, my credit score is probably above that. In fact, I know it's above that.
We'd have to look into that very carefully.
But nonetheless, it is kind of a frustrating type of thing to have to go through, especially for those that are, yeah, it's probably even more frustrating for those that aren't a good credit actually, but it is kind of a irritant.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to add too, many of the renters that come in maybe have a good credit score, but they've never paid a utility bill before because it was in someone else's name or they're living, you know, their living situation. So I think, you know, a credit score to me says a lot more. Most people with good credit score want to keep it there. They don't get it by not, you know, without earning it. So I guess I would, the fee, to me, the fee schedule isn't as important as helping people that are going to be good payers, you know, be able to move into town.
So let me ask this. Like you, I don't believe that the number here is critical. I think we could approve this fee schedule as is, and we need a motion for that, and we need a vote.
But if sometime in January, we had a meeting and we said, let's review our methodology for determining this. That becomes kind of a board and management decision that doesn't really require a vote. It becomes a management kind of decision that can be made and carried forward. I believe. Am I right or wrong?
I would think whatever that policy is, the commission would want to approve that.
But the fee schedule that we're on, we could approve this going forward, and we could say, okay, these are the fees that we want to have. But let's look at the procedure. Let's look at what Kathy and the ladies are doing. Let's look at the criteria, and we can do that at any time going forward. And it doesn't need to be an annualized. We've done it. It's January 1st. It's cast in stone. So
Oh, correct. Yeah, we can address any of these at any time.
But isn't that also because the fee is zero, if they're more, yes, right.
Yeah,
So
in terms of if we waive it or not, in terms of what that policy is, as in terms of what our minimum amount is, that's determined in the fee schedule.
If we use you and I as an example, and you see the credit score, and I see it, how did they get it?
well, they would, credit score is pretty easy for people to say, and most people pull it up on their phone. I know my kids.
It would just be a step. I mean,
I think we'd have to contract the service for somebody to do credit checks for us, would be my assumption.
Yeah.
So we would be looking at hiring a consultant or a fee for service type activity,
Yeah.
because it's something we're not doing at the moment. Right, which is, and that's an excellent point.
We're gonna approve the fee, maybe if we're gonna add, let's see, maybe we add a fee, if they pay, usually it's like a $35 fee to
Well,
run their.
That's actually a really excellent point, because when I have looked at other utilities who do credit checks, they have an application fee, which we don't have. So,
At this point, in case we do approve going forward.
I guess I would prefer to, this has all been very valuable. Let us go back and kind of start to formulate a plan to understand what areas might be impacted, and then have a discussion at a later date on this. Because,
I guess I'm not really comfortable with,
okay, well, okay, we're talking about Taco John's, and in here we have fees for service connections and everything. I mean, so the fee schedule that we have right now for 2020, I guess I always look at that as it expires 12/31, and after that, then I guess I don't know what we would do if the commission doesn't approve this fee schedule. So I guess from my perspective, I'd like to approve this because this has been what we've been doing. There are issues that we need to discuss, which, as Greg pointed out, one of you two, we can change at any time in the future. It's just, we make sure we do it annually, but if we wanted to come back in June and change it, you guys have the right to do that. I'd rather not hamper what our current operation is until, and put it on hold until we figure out some of these other answers.
On the subject along with others, or during another meeting, but I think there's going to be other things that we can have a study session on. I'm okay approving it as is, but I don't want it to talk about it in June. I want to talk about it so we're set. The other comment that I'll have is that we charge $30 or $35, I can't remember which one. But if they're going to get another hit from the PUC to do another credit check, I mean, that's boom, boom for the kind of the same thing.
Well, you can give them a copy of, you can provide them a copy of your credit check, and they can bring that into the public.
Sure.
We just can't share.
Right, and I guess I said that wrong, but that's what I was, do it once, and it's going to be done on our side, and then we'll have the full credit. Then they can show you their copy. It's their right, they paid for it. So anyway.
Yeah, I just don't know. It's something I'd have to look into.
I make a motion to approve the 2021 fee schedule as is.
I'm sorry, Rick, if I may modify that with the change of the cogen application fee to 100. It's on the bottom of the first page of the fee schedule under the electric construction charges new service. And at the very bottom, the very last line says cogen. It's currently $100. We were proposed to increase that to $350. I want to keep it at 100. Correct. Yes.
So with that correction, I make the motion.
I have to say, I'm a little frustrated because we've talked about this so many times since I've been on commission. I just want to get things done. I just feel like it just keeps getting the can, just keeps getting kicked down the road. And so, I feel like if we pass it, does it come up again? Do we remember?
Well, that's
yeah,
one of my conditions.
If I may offer a suggestion, one of the things I was thinking about that once, since appointments are done by the city council in January, we'll have our first meeting after that at the end of January. We've actually, I would say we've done a lot over the last year, 2 years. It comes down to priorities. We had focused on, there were a lot of things that we had to address. So, yeah, but I think it would make a lot of sense for, at our January meeting, for this commission to go through all of these items and let me know what's the top priority. Understanding that because we're talking about deposits, we're talking about changing the approval of the accounts payable. We're talking, I still got AMI going on, and there's a lot on our plates. And so it would help, I think, the organization if the commission would say, yes, we want to do all this, but here's number one. Let's get number one done, and then we'll go to number two. Let's get number two done, and then go to. Otherwise, we end up chasing our tail a little bit because we get direction to fix this, which we do, and then at the next meeting, it's like, okay, great. Now how come this hasn't been done yet? And it's just, I'm like, you know what I mean, Dan? I just, it would help me to have a little bit of direction in terms of what the top priorities are for the commission. Because there's a lot we want to get done. It's just a matter of how we get there. So I don't know if that exercise is of interest to the commission for January.
I'm in a different position than everybody else here, but I think this is not only there's financial considerations here, but the deposits have been a subject of interest for some time. So as much as I want to kick this can down the road so we can think about it, I really want to put a line in the sand here because it needs to be dealt with. It needs to be dealt fashion, so it doesn't get kicked. I think this is a legitimate concern. And I think we ought to put that line in the sand on whatever the date is for the January meeting. I'm sure it's out there. This is going to be priority number one. And you can pass this, and then the next month, immediately change it to say, we're going to use FICO scores only, or we're going to use Epcot, or whatever system you want to use out there. Whether they can bring it in, a copy from the one you did, or if we run another one, those are the details that need to be worked out. We need to know what that cost is going to be, because there will be a cost associated if we have to run a credit check. If your Social Security number will give you the deal and a delay. So, although I know there's car guys that can give you a credit application in about 30 seconds. I think you've got I just think we can't continue to push this. We need to say, all right, here's the first agenda on the January schedule. Let's get it done. We puts the pressure on you guys to say, okay, here's what it's going to cost. And here's what we're going to lose if we change the schedule, whatever. We need landlord folks to come up with some options that will make it good for their people, as well as not diminish our returns on what we're doing, and basically jeopardize, shift the onus onto regularly paying customers when we have issues. And that's part of what that's there for. I mean, these guys are, I guess we could suggest the landlords just drop all their deposits. I don't think that would work either. It doesn't make sense. So we need to have ours. How we get to them is the question. I think that ought to be the first question on the January agenda.
Mr. Chairman and Keith, tell me if I did or did not, but I asked it to happen right away in January on a work session or during the meeting. So that's my line in the sand is in January. It doesn't go any further than that. And that gives time to get it done.
The difference is the first January meeting, official meeting, is where we can pass it. We can have a work session anytime we want. But we have to have something on the agenda for that meeting says it's now done. Here's what we decided. We need to.
I'll expand on my motion to insist that that is part of the business for January's meeting.
I don't know if that, it's not part of the, I think we can have that, understanding, but I'm not sure that that's part of the memorandum that we have before us.
It's addressing the concerns about kicking it down the road. And so I don't see why we can't just do it and do it in January. I just don't see a problem with it.
So what's the motion?
My motion is that to approve the fee schedule as written, but I want to also make sure that this line is drawn so we can move forward and that the fee schedule deposits are discussed at January's meeting.
The second time, how do we add that to this memorandum that we're approving? I mean, that's a whole paragraph. I'm not sure how that gets.
Well, yeah, you just got to tell us what you wanted to say.
I took my, making a motion to approve it with the condition that the other works. It's a motion.
2 seconds.
Sorry. So Kathy, you're gonna have to listen to this tape very carefully and get that in. The motion has been made and seconded.
So if I can ask a clarification question. Is it to have it as a discussion, or are you looking for a full proposal as to what? So what I'm just. Okay. Okay.
Let's get this thing discussed.
Okay, so
So
you just
then-
want an agenda item on the
I would
January
like
one?
to see it at a work study. And then
Okay.
from that, it goes to the meeting and gets resolved. Whatever it is, if we resolve to keep it the same, then that's what we come up with in the work study. If it's going to be changed or use a credit score 650, that is discussed in the work study.
Okay, and are you saying that the work session would be prior to the January meeting?
Yes.
Okay, and so is your motion to accept the fee schedule as, well,
As is.
well, with the one edit, on the condition of having a work study session in January on the deposit policy? Okay, does that, what the commission? So the commission is preparing for 3 meetings in January. Because we have the joint session, which we agreed to with the city council. We have our regular meeting and now a work session.
Let's get things done. Correct. I just want to go in with a great attitude, work together, be happy, and let's just move forward every
Okay.
time.
Just also want to point out, I'm down a superintendent, okay? I'm already feeling stressed about January, so. Okay, that would be great. I mean, the more that the commission or individual commissioners can help to start draft up something rather than me inventing everything myself would help tremendously. Okay, okay.
When I applied to be on the commission, I said, my main goal, the only thing I said I wanted to do was improve the perception of the Princeton Public Utility. I think, if you could come in and buy a house, because you have a 700 credit score, and then you have to go for the deposit, I think that detracts from the perception of the Princeton Public Utilities. I think this credit score idea should help, improve that perception. It's just one less thing I have to come up with. So, yeah, I'm happy with that. I've got the 13th of January as an open Wednesday. Will that work for anybody else?
Yes.
We've got 3 days over here.
Yeah, that works for my schedule. But I have to check with Barry about the space. I don't foresee a problem, but I just need to check with him. I think it's okay to move forward, and I'll find accommodations.
Hard to cancel. So now, the motion has been made and seconded. We have a comment.
I was just gonna say, City Hall is open, that's also.
Oh, yeah, okay, thank you, Jenny.
City Hall.
If it's open, that's not.
Yeah.
Anything else about the civic center? We'll figure it out. Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign, motion is carried. Okay. New business. The Sherburne Village and Sherburne Lake has already been done. Chief wants to make some comments about the central long-term forecast.
Yeah, just SIPA is continuing to look at their long-term forecast. This year's long-term forecast is the first one that looks beyond the Sherco retirement. So that's why it makes it a little bit more interesting than usual, which has 2 main factors involved. One is the Sherco facility being retired and that coal plant coming offline. And then the second part of that is a SIPA member reduction from 18 to 16 as 2 members, Rochester and Austin, leave the agency as full members. As simple as looking out through the long-term forecast, I think the big thing to keep in mind is they're going to continue to do an intentional drawdown of their reserves through 2025. Those reserves will level out through 2029 and remain within their financial bandwidth. They're actually looking at some potential rate decreases in the late 2020s, around 2026 and 2027. And a lot of that is because the Sherco 3 bonds will be maturing, and those will come offline. And then in 2029, the WAPC wind contract expires, which also will result in some savings for the agency. And then once 2030 hits and Sherco is retired and the membership is reduced, the bandwidth obviously shifts, but because of the current financial metrics, they would be looking at a potential rate increase in the early 2030s. However, they're still anticipating that even with those rate increases by 2035, they think the rates will still be lower than what they are today. So it's all very positive news on the rate front. Now, as to how we actually, and when I say we, I mean SIMPA and the membership, how we actually move forward on that. Electric utilities don't like to do this with their rates because our customers don't like it either. So there's going to be some talk, I think, in trying to smooth that out a little bit, so there's not any economic shocks throughout the membership communities. But overall, I just wanted to mention it's very, very positive news as SIMPA continues to move forward into this next era, which is different than how it had originally been set up. And so they're addressing all those questions, and we're answering them as we can. And but it all looks very promising for us as a member of the agency in terms of how it impacts our customers and our rates. So I just wanted to share that.
Need to approve each one of these individually, or can we take these as a group?
That's your prerogative. I can go through each one, and then you can just do one blanket approval.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a question regarding this. I could. Okay. In the report, I noticed that there was a section on economic development, and there's some changes, some revisions that are taking place in that program in particular. And I know last month Stephanie heard about the economic development quarterly meeting, and we'd appreciate it if we would get notice of that quarterly meeting when SIMPA's meeting.
Oh, sure.
And then also those programs. I hope the commission would take a special interest in those programs, because it's something that Keith's noticed that is in place in SIMPA, but not in place in Princeton. And I think that it's something that I'd like the commission to at least look at and be familiar with it, get familiar with it, maybe take a look at what was sent in the packet regarding the economic development program. And I know you've got information in the past on it as well.
Okay.
I think it's important.
Thank you. Okay, Keith, back to you.
So would you like me to go through each one of the memos individually? Okay. So the first one is, as we've been looking at our infrastructure needs and planning for, let's see, I'm on the wrong one here. There we go. I'm sorry, I was one ahead. We are focusing efforts on continuing to underground the system. That section of our budget is currently under budget in the electric department. They've identified 5 main areas of tree growth in the area within our system that could affect reliability for some of our customers. We would like to take some of that money that had not been spent in the underground activities and clear those areas to a 5-year distance. We received, currently we're under budget by just over $31,000. We can't complete any more underground work this year. What we've, in the meantime, what we've identified is those areas where we could do some tree trimming to get caught up in some of those parts. We did kind of explore that a little bit and received 3 bids, which is in the memo in front of you. Staff's recommendation is to go with Carr's Tree Service for $25,300 to get aggressive in addressing some of those areas. That does not impact our overall budget, since the underground budget is more than that. So that was the first recommendation. The second, Mr. Chairman, do you want me to continue? Okay. The second recommendation is in the budget that was approved. We are wanting to move forward quickly on evaluating our infrastructure and doing an electric system study. We went ahead and got a couple of bids ahead of time because we would like to hit the ground running on this in 2021. We received 2 bids, one from DGR and one from SEH. The DGR was the lower bid. And so staff's recommendation is to select DGR as our contractor for the electric system study. And then in your packets, I did include copies of what that agreement looks like. The next one is assuming, I'm sorry. Oh, I apologize for that. The next one is assuming that we maintain our current schedule for meetings, which would be the 4th Wednesday of the month at 1 p.m. These would be the dates that we would have our regular meetings. And I went ahead and proactively moved the November and December meetings to 1 week earlier, since that's what we did this year, if that's the commission's desire on that. Given that we don't, our calendar is through the end of the year, I wanted to get something in place so that we did have January 27th as our official, have it approved as our meeting for next month. So that is just a proposed calendar for 2021. The next item is the proposed charge-offs for 2020. These are customers in which we have gone to great lengths to try to resolve. They're no longer customers of ours. And Kathy, please step in if I say anything incorrect. We've tried to collect on those. You'll see that we still do have many of them in the Minnesota Revenue Recapture Program. And there is a possibility that we still might get something out of it at some later date, but it has been going on for a while. So we're looking to just adopt that as the charge-off list for 2020. Certificate 2013 is another annual report that we give at the end of the year. This is what fixed assets we disposed of in 2020. It is the 3 trucks that we sold earlier this year. And so that's listed in Memorandum 2013. So we're looking for approval of the 2020 disposal of fixed assets. And then the last one, Memo 2014, is the results of the residential holiday lighting contest that we run every year. So it lists the grand prize, first runner-up, and second runner-up. And so we're looking for the commission to just approve the winners for the 2020 lighting contest. Any questions on any of those? Yes, sir.
The underground efforts, if you're taking money from there because it's under budget, did we not use these services before, and or where did that money come from if we did?
So in our budget, and I'm doing this because I want to be completely transparent with the commission. So in the budget, there's a line item for underground activity, and we had a certain number allocated for that. So that's where we're under budget. We can't do any more undergrounding. So the staff's recommendation was, well, we hadn't spent that money, so could we just use that to catch up on some tree trimming work? So it's money that's that we had allocated in the budget that we never spent, and we're just asking for permission to be able to spend that in this activity. No, it is not. No, this would be, that is new. We do the vast majority of the tree trimming ourselves. These particular areas gets a little bit beyond our equipment and everything, and it would just be good to just clean all that up. That was the intent.
The next, like the DGR
Yes.
and SEH, is it the same job? Are we getting the same information, comparing an apple to an apple? Does one do
That was the
more?
intent, yes. Yeah, to make sure that we were looking at a full system study. We've already got the fuse coordination information, so we've got that in there. We can handle our arc flash studies on our own, so those aren't in there. We did try to make it as close. And Ryan Grant really worked with both of them to kind of define that work scope and make sure that it was two valid bids.
Yeah, I just want to say that I drove all around town looking at all the Christmas tree, and it was really, there's some people that put a lot of work into it, and I just want to publicly say thank you to everybody who won and who didn't win, because I think this year especially, there's been a lot more people decorating. It's been kind of nice, something to do rather than sitting home and get out and drive around. And I especially like the ones, I'm sure, I think this event prize winner had the tune into the radio station. I don't know if you had a chance to see that, but there was, and obviously the light up and some of that was really nice. So, yeah, you could see from about a block away, or far the ones that really went all out with us, I think.
So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve memo 20-09 through memo 20-14. Motion's been made
Second?
and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
3-0. Thank you very much. Before we adjourn, I would like to commend Stephanie and the folks at City Hall for the light up the art program that they've done. It's been a lot of fun. We've been through a couple times. They've had a pile of donations at the end of the deal. So I think it's had a pretty positive impact, and I'm glad we were able to participate. Job well done.
It was great to see the utilities and public works work on setting the lights, lots of lights. There's maybe more lights to store. I think we have a trailer maybe for that.
Everybody did a really nice job.
When Walmart runs out of lights, we know there's a lot of people working. So it's been really good to see the community and the city and the utilities light up the community. That's phenomenal, really. Good collaboration. More than I think most people have expected, but it is an unusual year.
In that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second?
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion